In my recent Q&A video, one of the questions I got was why I enjoy grapplers and big body characters so much, and there were two reasons I gave. One of them was pretty obvious. I like big fat damage. Hell yeah. The other reason I gave is one that I wouldn't expect too many people to agree on, but that's all good. I like being stuck at full screen. I like slowly working my way in with the limited tools I have. I get that's very not for everyone, but I don't know, I think it's very satisfying and I enjoy the slower pace. Like, even though I have very limited tools, my existence is kind of dictating the pace of the match, because the opponent knows they gotta keep me out at all costs. I think that's very fun and satisfying, but I understand why not a lot of people would agree. Now, even though dictating the pace of a match from a distance is like their entire thing, I've never been much of a zoner guy, and that's pretty much because they fall short in the other area that I like grapplers and big body characters. Their damage is typically kinda low. However, as of late, I've been really enjoying Axel, and that's primarily thanks to a single special move, Axel Bomber. So let's talk about why I love this so much. For the most part, Axel's damage is on the lower side. And even though that's typically not something I enjoy, it makes perfect sense. He is a zoner after all. However, compared to the rest of his kit, Axel Bomber does quite a lot of damage. To people not familiar with Axel, this just looks like any old DP. However, it's anything but. And the reason for that is because it's an air-only special move. This means it's quite difficult to combo into it, but because of the damage, it's worth making the effort to combo into. It's sort of a similar concept to Soul's heavy DP. This does ludicrous damage, but only if you hit it point blank. So, while it's quite difficult to get that clean hit, you really do want to go out of your way to make the effort to get it. This is why you often see Soul players sacrifice a little bit of damage in the middle of a combo, to instead use weaker normals that sacrifice damage to set up the perfect conditions to combo into Heavy Volcanic Viper. It's obviously quite different in practice, but the fundamental idea is there. For example, it's quite easy for Axel to combo into Snail. He can do it after a full Gatling. But despite the fact that it's much more awkward to combo into, needing a jump cancelable normal instead of a full Gatling, the damage is still better overall. Also, just to be clear, that 2H after the Axel Bomber is guaranteed. It's an OTG. You can also go for Rensen. Overall, you go for 2H if you want damage, and Rensen if you want setups. Now, mid-screen, the extra damage is nothing ridiculous, and I wouldn't blame you for not being impressed, to be honest. But in the corner, what you just saw was a bomber loop, and it's sick as fuck. Now, if you're not familiar with bomber loops, you might see this kind of meterless damage on a zoner and be like, what the fuck, that's broken. And I get it, but bomber loops do have a very important weakness. They're pretty fucking hard. If you're practicing bomber loops, you are gonna get that all the fucking time. See, because Axel Bomber is an air-only special move, you're not just cancelling your normal into it. You have to cancel your normal into a jump, and input Axel Bomber during your pre-jump frames. I think this is incredibly fucking sick. Instead of just having below average damage across the board, Axel has mostly low damage options, but access to a single incredibly high damage option that is balanced by being situational and very difficult. Another thing that keeps it balanced in my opinion is it's a corner combo on a zoner. Axel's corner pressure is fine, but it's not anything amazing, and one back throw and he is in a very nasty position. You could just kinda hang back and do Axel things. No shame in that. Speaking of no shame though, please don't feel bad if you want to learn these and you can't do them at all, or at least find them incredibly difficult. There's zero shame in that. They are genuinely quite hard. You're gonna make goofs like that all the time, and that's okay. There's no shame in it. This is your copy of the game that you bought with your money for your enjoyment. Do combos that suit you, and that you feel good for doing. I am anything but a good Hexel, but here's a few tips for how I personally do them if you are committed to learning them. Firstly, I do my jump cancelable normal, and I hold up forward. That flash when they get hit is my hit confirm. If they block, I'll do something like this, just to stay safe. After the hit stun ends, I go from holding up forward to doing a really fast DP motion, then heavy slash. You want to try do that during your pre-jump so you spend as little time in the air as possible before the Axel Bomber. The later you do it, the higher you're going to be off the ground when you do the Axel Bomber, and the higher you go, the harder a follow-up is going to be. If your bomber comes out a little late, then that's still potentially okay, but I would make sure to go for 5k instead of cloak slash for the second. It's 2 frames faster, so it gives you a little bit of leniency. Using 5k even if you get an early one is still a fine idea. You're not giving up that much damage, and it does make the combo easier for some. Speaking of easier, no one's saying that you have to do that one optimal combo with the 4 Axel Bombers every time if you find it difficult. You can end the combo in 5H for a little more consistency at the cost of damage. You can also end the combo in super. The damage increase isn't actually that high, but it can still be worth it. Bomber loops build a ton of meter, and at the end of the day you're still getting the Oki from breaking the wall with a super. You could also use combos that don't need 3 bombers to get a wolf splat. This one uses 2, and I use it quite a lot, just when I want to play it safe. Meter can also be extremely useful when going for bomber loops, because you can turn failed attempts into pressure with a Roman cancel. You can also use a jump cancel dash forward blue Roman cancel to start bomber loops from mid-screen. Pretty damn hard, but shit, it looks cool. With purple Roman cancels, you can get bomber loops off your 6H overhead. You can do it with uncharged dust too, but the scaling is extremely shitty, I wouldn't recommend it. You'd think a counter hit 6H will give you bomber loops, but I don't think it does. The gravity is increased and I've never managed to get more than 2, so I would just settle for a weaker combo. So yeah, there is a lot to this move, but you might be familiar with Axel's other Axel Bomber. This one's a bit weird. You're probably familiar with his command grab. The further away you are from Axel, the faster the startup is. But if he manages to get a point blank one, he'll do an Axel Bomber. Functionally, this is pretty different to an Axel Bomber. It does less damage, the scaling after it is worse, and it's not great overall, because while Axel's command grab is really good, it's pretty hard to land at point blank because of how slow it is. Still, it's something. You can get loops off it in the corner, but I don't think I'd recommend it. It's quite tight because there's increased gravity, and because of the extra scaling, it's not that strong compared to his other options. I would just go for this instead if you happen to land one. Also, I get that it looks like a DP, but trust me, this ain't no anti-air. It's got no invincibility, so don't try it. Even if it's not an anti-air, it can at least be good in anti-air combos. Also, you probably guessed, but don't do this move on block. It's massively unsafe, so get your hit confirms down. Now that's pretty much everything I wanted to say regarding this move, so I'll move on to my closing thoughts in a minute. But again, I just want to stress, don't feel bad if you can't do these. I'd hate for newer Axel players to watch this, not be able to do them, and then feel bad every time they hopped online and didn't do them. Listen, Axel is a zoner first and a guy with fat damage in the corner second. You can be a great Axel and never touch these. You just play the game the way you want to play it, and I'm sure you'll be pretty sick. And remember, it's in the corner where Axel Bomber is really crazy. Outside of that, it typically just adds on a tiny bit of extra damage. So, don't worry about it. You'll still get pretty similar results not doing it most of the time. So that's Axel's Axel Bomber. Honestly, I fucking love this move. It's maybe my favorite thing about Axel, and I'd implore you to give it a try, even if you don't play Axel. It's fun to learn. I just love the idea of taking a character who typically has low damage and giving him access to massive damage by making the effort to combo into a pretty hard to combo into move. It's a really sick idea, and even though it's quite difficult, I'd love to see more people give it a try. Do these. It's completely fine. They are very difficult. Oh shit, I was trying to fuck it up on purpose and God damn it. That does not prove my point. Fuck.